Did you know that over half of seniors in the US say they feel invisible, even when surrounded by family? Imagine sitting at a dinner table, laughter all around you, yet feeling like no one truly sees you anymore. It's a quiet reality many over 60 face, but few dare to admit. No one talks about the deep craving for companionship after 60. Not just romance, but the need for someone who truly listens, shares the small moments, and makes you feel alive again. Society paints a picture that once you've raised kids or retired, your social and emotional needs fade away. But the truth is they don't. In fact, the need for connection often grows stronger. And here's the twist. Companionship in your later years isn't always about starting over with a new partner, or moving in with someone new. Sometimes it's about rediscovering closeness in unexpected ways, through friendships that feel like family, through modern companionship trends like living apart together, or even through building deeper bonds with people you already know. What if companionship after 60 is not about filling a void, but about rewriting what connection means for you right now? Stay with me because in this video, we're going to explore the truths about senior companionship that almost no one is talking about, and you might just see yourself in these stories. Welcome to Senior Relationships After 60. Today, we're uncovering what no one tells you about companionship in your later years. Truths that might surprise you, comfort you, or even challenge how you've been thinking about connection at this stage of life. Let me introduce you to Clara Mayfield, a 67-year-old retired librarian from a small town in Ohio. Clara spent decades surrounded by people. Students, colleagues, family. She was the one people turned to for advice, for comfort, for a listening ear. But when retirement arrived and the pace of her world slowed, Clara started to notice something unexpected. Despite being invited to family gatherings and neighborhood events, she felt invisible. She once told me, "It's like people see me sitting there, but they don't really notice me anymore." Her story is far more common than most people realize. And if you've ever found yourself nodding along thinking, "Yes, I know exactly how that feels," then this video was made for you. Because Clara's experience isn't just about loneliness. It's about the human need to feel valued, seen, and connected, even when society suggests those needs fade after 60. And here's the part that rarely gets spoken about. Companionship later in life doesn't always look the way it did when you were younger. It's not necessarily about romance or starting a new family. For some, it's about rekindling friendships, building meaningful bonds in community groups, or even exploring modern companionship arrangements that allow for independence and closeness at the same time. Clara's journey will take us through these realities, and along the way, you might see reflections of your own story. But before we dive in, I want to pause for just a moment. If you've ever felt the sting of being overlooked, if you've ever longed for someone to share even the smallest daily routines with, then you know how powerful these conversations are. That's why I encourage you to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone in your life. Because these stories, these lessons, could truly change the way you see companionship forever. And who knows? This might be the spark that helps you or someone you love open the door to a new kind of connection. 1. The unspoken loneliness after 60. Clara Mayfield had always thought retirement would be a golden chapter. No more rushing to the library every morning. No more late nights grading student essays. She imagined mornings filled with coffee on the porch, afternoons with her grandchildren, evenings catching up with old friends. But what surprised her most wasn't the quiet. It was how heavy that quiet sometimes felt. Picture this. Clara sits at her daughter's Thanksgiving table. The room buzzes with chatter. Stories about work promotions, school projects, upcoming trips. She smiles, passes the mashed potatoes, and laughs when someone cracks a joke. Yet, deep down, she feels like an extra in her own family's movie. No one asks her what's new in her life, because they assume there isn't anything new. And she doesn't correct them. She tells herself, "Why bring it up? They wouldn't understand." This is the unspoken loneliness many seniors carry. It's not about being completely alone. It's about being surrounded by people yet feeling unseen. And here's the truth. Many over 60 avoid admitting this loneliness, not because it isn't real, but because they fear it will sound like complaining. Some worry their children will feel guilty. Others believe they're supposed to be grateful just to be included. So instead, they swallow the ache in silence. Experts even call this masked loneliness, and it's becoming more common as seniors live longer but often with fewer peers around them. What's heartbreaking is that this hidden loneliness doesn't just affect mood. It can impact physical health, raising the risk of heart disease, memory decline, and even shortening life expectancy. Yet it remains a topic rarely brought to the surface. Clara's story is a mirror for many. She doesn't lack people in her life, but she craves meaningful connection. A conversation where someone listens deeply, where she feels valued not for the past she lived, but for the person she still is today. And if you're watching this and nodding along, maybe you felt it too. That invisible weight that comes from being present but not truly seen. So let me ask you, have you ever felt this way too? Have you ever been in a room full of people yet felt like no one really noticed you? If so, share your experience in the comments. Your voice matters here, and your story might just comfort someone else who feels the same way. 2. The silent struggle with identity. For decades, Clara Mayfield's identity was tied to her work as a librarian. She wasn't just someone who checked out books. She was the keeper of knowledge in her community, the person students turned to for help with their essays, the neighbor who always had the perfect recommendation for a good read. Every day she had a clear role, a purpose, and a sense of belonging. But after retirement, something unexpected happened. Without her daily routines, without the recognition of being Mrs. Mayfield the librarian, she began to wonder, who am I now? Her calendar, once filled with staff meetings and community events, suddenly felt empty. And that emptiness wasn't just about how she spent her time. It began to feel like an emptiness in her sense of self. This is one of the silent struggles so many seniors face. Retirement is painted as freedom, but it can also feel like losing an identity that anchored you for decades. Roles shift. Parents become grandparents, workers become retirees, caregivers sometimes become the ones who need care. And with every shift, a piece of identity seems to slip away. The danger here is subtle. When you no longer feel seen for who you are, you risk starting to believe you no longer matter. But here's where companionship becomes more than just company. It becomes a lifeline to rediscovering self-worth. For Clara, that moment came when a neighbor invited her to join a local book club. First she hesitated. She told herself, I'll just sit quietly in the corner. They won't really notice me. But something happened. The group began asking for her thoughts, laughing at her witty observations, and leaning in when she shared her perspective. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt seen, not as someone's mother or grandmother, not as a retiree, but as Clara, a woman with valuable insight and personality. Companionship, in this sense, isn't always about romance. It's about finding spaces where your identity is acknowledged and appreciated again. Whether it's a club, a volunteer group, a church circle, or even an online community, these connections help rebuild the parts of yourself that you thought had faded away. If you're over 60 and struggling with this silent question of identity, remember this. You are not defined by the roles you once held. You are still a person with wisdom, humor, stories, and gifts that others need. Sometimes it just takes the courage to step into a new circle to rediscover that truth. So let me ask you, have you found new ways to feel seen after retirement? Have you joined a group or tried something new that made you feel alive again? Share your story in the comments, because your journey might inspire someone else who is still searching. 3. Rediscovering emotional intimacy. For Clara, companionship wasn't just about filling an empty chair at the dinner table. It was about daring to feel close to someone again. But that was terrifying. Like many seniors, Clara had lived through loss. Her husband, Richard, had passed away 6 years earlier. They had shared nearly 4 decades together, and his absence left a silence no amount of phone calls or family visits could fill. After his death, Clara promised herself she would never open up that deeply again. The fear of heartbreak, of vulnerability, felt too heavy to bear. And Clara isn't alone. Many over 60 carry invisible scars, widowhood, divorce, or the simple wear and tear of relationships that didn't work out. It's easy to tell yourself, I've had my chapter of love. That part of my life is behind me. But beneath that protective shield often lies a quiet longing. The desire to be held, to laugh with someone over morning coffee, to share the little rituals of daily life that make existence feel less lonely and more alive. The key to rediscovering intimacy isn't to dive headfirst into romance. It's to start small. What psychologists call micro-moments of connection can gently rebuild trust. For Clara, it began with a simple morning walk with a neighbor. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people strolling, talking about books, gardens, and the unpredictable Ohio weather. Over time, that neighbor's presence became something she looked forward to. Later, she found herself cooking dinner with him once a week, sharing recipes and laughter over small mistakes in the kitchen. These little acts may seem ordinary, but for someone rebuilding emotional intimacy, they are extraordinary. They remind you that connection doesn't always have to be dramatic. It can be woven into the everyday fabric of life. A smile at the farmer's market. Phone call just to say hello. A note tucked into a book for a friend. These gestures are stepping stones to trust, reminding you it's safe to open up again. And here's the surprise. Companionship in your later years doesn't always mean moving in together or blending two households. For many, it's about preserving independence while still embracing closeness. Emotional intimacy doesn't require sharing an address. It requires sharing presence, honesty, and care. So let me ask you, have you started to rediscover those small sparks of connection in your own life? Maybe through a friendship, a community group, or even a neighbor you've grown closer to. Share your story in the comments, because someone watching right now might need that gentle reminder that intimacy can begin with the smallest of steps. 4. Modern companionship trends among seniors. By 2025, one of the most talked about trends among seniors in the US is something called LAT, living apart together. It's a relationship style where two people choose to be committed partners without sharing the same household. And while it may sound unusual at first, for many older adults it's exactly the balance they've been searching for. For Clara Mayfield, this idea was life-changing. After losing her husband, she wasn't looking to start over with another traditional marriage. She valued her independence, her quiet mornings with tea, her book collection arranged just the way she liked, and the freedom to travel to see her grandchildren whenever she wanted. But she also longed for companionship, someone to laugh with, confide in, and share life's joys and struggles. When Clara met Daniel, a retired art teacher from her community, they both felt an immediate spark. Yet instead of rushing to merge households, they made a different choice. They saw each other several times a week, went to concerts, shared meals, and even took weekend trips together. But at the end of the day, Clara went home to her space, and Daniel to his. Each respected the other's routines, while still enjoying the emotional closeness of a relationship. This is why LAT relationships are becoming more common among seniors in the US today. Many in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s want love and companionship, but they don't want to give up the independence they worked hard to build. Some have lived alone for years and find comfort in that autonomy. Others want to avoid the financial and legal complexities that can come with remarriage. And for many women in particular, LAT is empowering. It allows them to enjoy connection without returning to the role of full-time caregiver. Experts now say that LAT is one of the fastest-growing relationship models among older adults. It challenges the old belief that companionship has to mean moving in together or walking down the aisle again. Instead, it reflects a modern truth. Intimacy and independence can coexist. For Clara, it wasn't a compromise, it was a liberation. She no longer felt invisible, and she didn't feel pressured to give up the home and habits that brought her comfort. Her story shows that companionship after 60 doesn't have to follow old rules. It can be designed around your needs, your values, and your lifestyle. So here's a question for you. Would you ever consider a living apart together relationship? Do you think it offers the best of both worlds? Or do you prefer the traditional way of building companionship? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could open someone else's eyes to a new possibility. 5. Breaking the silence around desire. There's a quiet assumption in our culture that once you reach a certain age, the need for intimacy simply fades away. Movies rarely show it, conversations in families avoid it, and society as a whole seems to pretend it doesn't exist. But here's the unspoken truth. Seniors still long for affection, closeness, and yes, intimacy. Those desires don't disappear at 60, 70, or even 80. If anything, they often deepen, because affection is no longer about appearances or youthful passion, but about genuine connection, comfort, and being truly seen. Clara knew this feeling all too well. After her husband's passing, she spent years convincing herself that part of her life was over. She poured her energy into hobbies and family, but at night she would catch herself missing the simple things. The warmth of a hand held across the couch, a hug that lingered a little longer, the security of knowing someone was there beside her. What she missed most wasn't romance in the Hollywood sense. It was tenderness, the kind that reminds you you're still lovable, still worthy of closeness. The truth is, intimacy after 60 often carries even greater meaning. For many seniors, it's less about passion and more about reassurance. It's about trust, laughter in the quiet moments, and feeling cherished. Yet too many silence this need out of fear of judgment. Some worry their adult children will find it inappropriate to see them dating again. Others feel embarrassed, as though society has decided that intimacy belongs only to the young. But here's what research and lived experience both prove. Affection and physical closeness are essential for health and happiness at every age. They lower stress, improve mood, and even reduce the risk of chronic illness. More importantly, they remind us that we are still alive in every sense of the word. Clara's journey illustrates this shift. When she grew close to Daniel, she realized she didn't have to apologize for wanting tenderness. Their intimacy didn't erase the love she had for her late husband. It simply reflected her capacity to keep growing, to keep loving, and to keep being loved. It was not a replacement, but an expansion of her story. And that's what breaking the silence is all about, reminding ourselves and others that intimacy in later years is not only normal, it's beautiful. It's not about trying to be 20 again. It's about honoring the stage of life you're in, with all the wisdom, patience, and gratitude that comes with it. So let me ask you, do you think intimacy in later years is misunderstood? Let us know in the comments below. Your honesty might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to finally give themselves permission to embrace the closeness they've been quietly longing for. 6. The healing power of companionship. When Clara Mayfield first stepped into retirement, she felt like a shadow of herself, present in the room but unseen, unheard, almost fading into the background. Yet through her journey of rediscovering companionship, something remarkable happened. She began to glow again. The woman who once sat quietly at family dinners now spoke with spark in her voice. The Clara who once avoided social gatherings now looked forward to them. And the biggest change wasn't just what others noticed, it was how she felt inside. Vibrant, hopeful, and alive. This transformation isn't unique to Clara. Science consistently shows that companionship is far more than a comfort. It's a cornerstone of healthy aging. Researchers have found that strong social bonds can reduce stress hormones, lower blood pressure, and even strengthen the immune system. Seniors with meaningful connections are less likely to experience depression, and studies from institutions like Harvard have shown that close relationships are one of the most powerful predictors of a longer, healthier life. In fact, some research suggests that lacking social ties can be as harmful to longevity as smoking or obesity. For Clara, the difference was tangible. Before reconnecting with companionship, she often felt restless, her nights heavy with loneliness. But once she began spending time with Daniel, joining her book club, and sharing daily moments of laughter, even her doctor noticed the change. Her blood pressure improved, she had more energy, and she reported sleeping better. Emotional closeness had spilled into physical well-being. This is the healing power of companionship. It doesn't just touch the heart. It revitalizes the body and sharpens the mind. When you share your life with others, you activate something fundamental in human nature. The need to belong. And that belonging creates resilience. It makes challenges easier to face, it restores hope, and it reminds you that your story is still unfolding. For seniors across the U.S., This is a critical reminder. Companionship is not a luxury to be enjoyed only if it comes along. It is a lifeline to health, joy, and meaning in your later years. It's not about how many people are in your life, but about cultivating connections that are real, supportive, and affirming. Clara's journey from invisible to vibrant proves that it's never too late to rediscover this power. She didn't just find companionship, she found herself again. And if she could rebuild her sense of joy at 67, there's no reason you can't begin today, no matter where you are on your path. Companionship after 60 isn't about losing independence. It's about gaining a new lease on life. It's the bridge between loneliness and joy, between simply existing and truly living. For Clara Mayfield, that bridge transformed her world. She began her retirement years feeling invisible, quietly carrying the weight of loneliness, and wondering if her best days were already behind her. But through small steps, joining a book club, saying yes to a morning walk, opening her heart to the possibility of closeness again, Clara discovered that companionship could revive not only her spirit but her sense of purpose. What Clara's journey reveals is something powerful. Companionship in later years doesn't have to follow the same rules it did in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. It can be flexible, gentle, and perfectly tailored to the life you've built. Sometimes it looks like friendship that feels like family. Sometimes it's laughter over a meal, or a steady presence on the other end of the phone. Sometimes it's a romantic connection where two people, like Clara and Daniel, choose to keep their own homes while building a meaningful relationship together. And sometimes it's simply finding the courage to let yourself be seen again, to admit that you still want to be cherished. The beauty of companionship after 60 is that it's not about filling a void. It's about enriching the life you already have. It's about creating new stories, not erasing old ones. It's proof that no matter your age, your need for connection is not a weakness. It's a sign of your humanity. And choosing to seek companionship is not a step backward. It's a brave step forward into joy. So if you've ever told yourself, "It's too late for me," or "that part of my life is over," let Clara's story be your reminder that the door is never closed. Companionship is not limited by age. It is fueled by openness, curiosity, and courage. Every shared smile, every honest conversation, every new bond has the power to breathe fresh energy into your life. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest lesson here is this. Independence and intimacy can live side by side. You don't have to give up your freedom to gain closeness. You don't have to trade your solitude for love. You can have both. And in that balance lies the possibility of living these years not as the end of your story, but as a vibrant, meaningful new chapter. If this message touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who might be quietly longing for companionship too. Because here's the truth. You never really know what someone is going through. A friend, a neighbor, or even a family member might be carrying the same invisible weight that Clara once carried, smiling on the outside while feeling overlooked on the inside. Sharing this video could be the nudge they need to realize they are not alone, and that companionship is still possible, still powerful, and still waiting for them. When you subscribe to Senior Relationships After 60, you're not just joining a channel, you're joining a movement. A community of seniors across the US and beyond who are ready to rewrite the narrative about aging, connection, and love. Every video here is designed to speak to the heart of what it means to be seen, valued, and understood in this season of life. By subscribing, you ensure you won't miss the stories, tips, and conversations that just might change the way you think about your own journey. And here's where you can help us build something bigger. Drop your voice into the conversation. Have you ever felt invisible like Clara did? Have you found creative ways to rediscover companionship? Or are you still searching for that spark of connection? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story may be the very thing that gives someone else the courage to take their first step. Most importantly, remember this. Engagement isn't just about numbers. Every like, every comment, every share sends a signal to YouTube that these stories matter, that seniors matter, that your voice matters. The more you interact, the more this message spreads to people who need it most. So, by pressing that like button or writing a single sentence in the comments, you're helping to shine a light into someone else's life. So here's my heartfelt ask. If anything in Clara's story resonated with you, take just a second, like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with a friend or loved one. Because companionship after 60 isn't just Clara's story. It's yours, it's mine, it's ours. And together, we can make sure no one walks this journey feeling invisible ever again.